welcome to the Law of Attraction 2.0 Spiritual Straight Talk with GP Walsh, longtime spiritual teacher and healer, and hosted by myself, Karen Scarpula, author and forgiveness expert. So I'm so excited today to be speaking with an expert in brain entrainment technology. He's actually a longtime listener of our show. Many of you may recognize his voice. Do you want to say hello?
Hello, everyone.
So you may recognize Don McCarty. Welcome, Don, to our show. We're so excited to have you today.
Thank you. I'm so honored.
Oh, thank you. Before we get started, Don, I hope you don't mind. I really would like to share some background information with our listeners. Several years ago, Don was drawn to the use of sound as an aid to meditation and relaxation. He started utilizing these technologies and was so impressed by their effectiveness that he decided to see if he could make them even better. I always love that, someone who wants to improve on something that's already there. And you know what he did? Most recently, Don has joined forces with GP to create a set of meditations using the brain entrainment technology. Don is also the engineer of this month's free gift on our website. If you haven't had a chance to go and take a look at it, it's the I Am Money meditation. And G, before we get into things, I'd like to turn it over to you and have you share some insights with us about Don and working together with him.
Well, it's kind of cool because Don has been a listener to the show for a long time, and I recognize his voice, and I had no idea that he did this. And it came about because he did an app for the Law of Attraction Radio Network, the app for LOA Radio Network, which you can download from iTunes. He created for the network. When I heard that, I went and then I realized it was the same Don. I thought, well, okay, I gotta check this out because I wanted to do something with an app. Now I gotta tell you, I've tried a lot of the brainwave stuff. I try everything, right? Whatever's out there that can help people function better, help them on their path, make the path a little bit easier as they move towards full self-realization, is good in my book. So I try out just about every technique that comes along, and I tried the brainwave stuff, the binaural beats. I even made some of my own. And it just didn't have any effect on me. I mean, I put it on and nothing. Now, there were a lot of people that swore by it. There's a whole bunch of different brands out there you can get. A lot of people swear by it, say it was really, really effective. But I figured, okay, well, after, 30 plus years of meditating, it's, there's just nothing more to get out of it. And then I heard Don's. I put on something that he had done, and I actually felt it. And I said, okay, well, there's something different going on here because I'm actually feeling it. And I was kind of like immune to the stuff, which is why I decided to get in touch with him and find out if he wanted to do something with me and to find out exactly what it was he was doing. And it turns out that he has this very unique combination of three different technologies for brain entrainment. And when we combined it with my meditation music and my voice, the effect was really quite magic. I mean, I'm really pleased with the I Am Money meditation, which is the first thing we did together. And now we've actually created a little business called Clear Mind Sound. And we're putting the finishing touches on our first mobile app, which is going to be a series of meditations. And there's going to be plenty more where they came from. Now, before I leave all my praise for Don and his work, I think there's a wonderful story about a fellow named Swami Rama. And Swami was an enlightened master who quite literally grew up in the Himalayas with a sage. From the time he was 5 years old, he went to be with this sage and was raised by him, and eventually attained, this full awakening. Became a very, very powerful master. And he was teaching in the U.S., and he was the guy, I don't know if some folks may remember, back in the 70s, there were these stories when the biofeedback machines were being introduced. And they were doing tests on the biofeedback with the biofeedback machines on all sorts of different people, and he was one of the people they tested. And he was a very interesting character because he was in all the tests they did, medical tests, they did biofeedback, they did all this stuff on him as this experienced yogi, and he would do things like give himself a cancer that they would detect, and everybody get all alarmed, and then he'd move it to a different part of his body. He had complete control over the functioning of his body. He'd be sound asleep. He'd be showing up on all the machines as being sound asleep, and then they'd wake him up and he'd tell him everything that was going on. And he, after all the experiments and stuff, when he went back to, he's the founder of the Himalayan Institute, the East-West bookstores, which are very popular in, there's one in Los Angeles and one in New York City. And he bought like 4 of these biofeedback machines to bring back to the Institute to help people learn how to meditate better. And he got criticized for it, saying, well, isn't that, use technology? What is that? Aren't you supposed to just like sit for hours on end naked in the snow? And he said, you Americans are so funny. I mean, you take technology to blow things up, but if I want to use technology to make people's life better, and you're criticizing me. And after hearing that story many, many years ago, I've just never ever poo-pooed the use of technology for the advancement of consciousness. And so it's really important to point out that any technique, no technique, is the ultimate. The ultimate always comes from within you. But believe me, having learned all these self-help techniques and gone through ab reactions and gestalt and stuff that was, sometimes where the release of the trauma was more painful than the trauma in the first place. The new things we have, like the Sedona method and release technique, EFT, NLP, that are so much more gentle to help the release of traumas. I am all in favor of any kind of technology that assists in the process. Because I've had questions before on the show about brain entrainment technology and the like. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as you bring the right intention to it, it's not a be-all and end-all. You don't put on the headphones and suddenly, everything is rosy, right? I mean, there's still work to be done. There's still the development of character, and there's no technology I know out there that can turn you into a person of character. It can help you relieve traumas. It can help the nervous system process. It can help you confront your inner demons. But ultimately, that last step is going to be all by yourself. In the meantime, I'm creating as many tools as I possibly can to help people get to the point where they're ready and able to make that last step.
Well, I think that's a really good point for our listeners, that it's really a combination of tools sometimes that you have to consider using for yourself to help get you to that place you want to be. And I think you and I were joking around earlier about if it were just that easy to put a meditation on and listen to it and have it change you, we would all be different people.
That's
so
right.
That's just not going to happen. You do have to actively be a participant.
You can't be passive in your own growth.
Yes. So, and I like the idea of looking for multiple kinds of tools. And in that class, I love that we're going to be talking about brain entrainment technology tonight. So before we get started talking about our topic this evening, I just want to remind everyone that if you would like to ask a question, please press *6, and I'll be alerted. You'll show up in my queue, and I will get to you as soon as I can so that you can ask your question. So it's *6. So, Don, are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
So I have a really basic question for you. So is this like subliminal sounds for those of us that don't have a really strong knowledge of brain entrainment technology? Tell me about it. Is it like the flash of the Coke can that you see in the background? It's supposed to make you buy the Coke. Is that what we're talking about? Or explain it to us.
No, it's actually it's a simple effect. It's known as the frequency following response, that basically just really means that if you present a dominant present frequency to your mind, to your brain, it will attempt to resonate with that. It will attempt to move in alignment with that. And we use the binaural beats because the type of frequencies that we're talking about are extremely low frequencies. They're really low, and they're really below the threshold of human hearing, which is it's 20 hertz roughly. And the frequencies that your brain operate in, so folks are probably pretty familiar with alpha, theta, delta, those terminologies for brains, is that the delta wave, which would be the deep sleep, is the lowest frequency of all. It's like between 0 and like 1.5 hertz. And then you get to the theta wave where you're kind of sort of in more of your dream state, your kind of imaginal mind, and that's like 4 to 7 hertz. Then you get more into your alpha wave state, which is kind of more the sort of the dynamic alert mind, a little bit of kind of that sort of, a lot of the self-help kind of technologies it's like to try to get you into that alpha state because it's really good for creating and all that sort of stuff. Okay. And then there's the beta range, which is above 12 hertz. I forget what the threshold is for that. So there are all of these types of ranges that we're trying to work with to get the brain into the right mode are really below the range of hearing. So we have to use other technologies in order to get the brain to hear these sounds inside that it can actually hear with the ear. So what a binaural beat is basically just two frequencies that are really close to each other. And so let's say 200 hertz and 205 hertz, okay? And so you'd put the 200 hertz in the left ear and the 205 hertz in the right ear. And because the frequencies are within 30 hertz of each other or less, the brain will try to not hear them as separate tones. It will try to work the difference between the two of them, and it will basically make a third tone. So in the case of the 200 hertz and the 205 hertz, the difference is 5 hertz. So the resulting binaural tone, the imaginal tone, is 5 hertz. The brain makes that up, and then it follows it, and then you go down. You experience that relaxation, and that sort of thing. If that makes sense.
Just to help out people in the audience who might not know what a hertz is, they're talking about it's thousands of cycles per second. So, like the note A440 that you hear, which is kind of concert A that they use for tuning. When you hear an orchestra tuning, they're all tuning to that note. That's A440, and that means 440 hertz. Right. So at 60 hertz. Between 60 and 20, we stop being able to hear it, but you can kind of feel it, like the subwoofers on that car going by on the street. Mm-hmm. That's like shaking your car, but you can't actually hear it. It's because the frequencies have gotten so big. The wave of sound has gotten so big that it's actually moving you, but it's too big for your ear to pick up. And so what happens is when you play two tones that are separated from each other by a short distance, the brain actually subtracts the difference and just focuses completely, subtracts the originals and focuses completely on that difference. And it's as if the ear actually heard a note below what you can really hear.
Exactly.
It's pretty cool when you think about it. The brain literally makes it up. Because it's trying to fill in the space. So it makes it up, and all of a sudden you find yourself in the theta state because that's the state it needed to get into in order to balance those two sounds.
And then does that end up being like a sustained state? It's sustained through what? The constant beat then until the beat remains? That's a sustained state?
As long as the sound's there.
Okay.
Right. And then also what happens is the brain will you will create relationships with those neural manifestations. So you actually can imagine that state of mind once you've experienced it. The brain tends to create sort of like hard-coded ways to fast-track itself back to those same states by remembering and creating certain, however the brain, does all that stuff. But it actually creates an awareness of that experience. So the more you do it, the more you get used to doing it. It's kind of like I was listening to a neurophysicist talking about, new ideas and new pathways in the mind. It's kind of like cutting a path through a dense forest. Each time you go through, the path becomes easier and easier to traverse. More things are out of the way and that sort of thing. And so I found that as a daily practice and using it as an ongoing thing, it's actually helped me stay conscious and aware of those states of mind, even when I don't have the sound available now.
Yeah,
so,
that's actually a really good point. It is a practice, and anything you practice, you get to the point where it becomes rather spontaneous. I mean, I find myself falling into a meditative state pretty much the moment my butt hits the cushion. My body knows, it's meditation time, and automatically goes into it. I don't have to do much to prepare, unless I'm really agitated about something. Then I have to settle myself down. But it's all part of the nervous system has gotten used to. This is what I'm doing. This is it. Boom, we're there, and it automatically joins in. Any kind of entrainment, and meditation is a form of entrainment. Practicing an instrument is a form of entrainment. And that's really what this is doing by introducing this sound that we can't normally hear, which is pretty incredible.
Might I just pause and just mention to the listeners, I'm just a regular guy. I'm an IT guy. I really kind of got really stressed out from my career in 2008, and I was looking for a way to help myself. And, I had naturally turned to technology. And, I use these technologies to this day to deal with situations where, the anxiety mind, the worry mind, the runaway mind can get the better of me, where maybe before a big meeting or certain types of things in my business. And, it's just amazing how accessible this is for anyone that just, have these MP3s loaded or using an app like we're designing or something that, it's right there in your pocket, and just a few minutes, even listening to it, maybe while you're at work or something, really can give you a leg up on some of that stress and that, that worrisome problem mind that you feel is so out of control. It really is easier to control than you might think.
They use binaural beats extensely now in hypnotherapy for getting people into the hypnotic state, as well as there's glasses you can get too that have a similar effect. That they're not actually glasses; they're black. You can't see through them, and they have little light emitting diodes inside, and they flash various sequences which create a similar effect that the binaural beats do. Only they do it through light rather than through sound. So and that's used quite a bit all the time in hypnotherapy now.
I suffered from the problem of having a really active mind, which I still do, but it wasn't active to my greater good most of the time. And, I worried about everything. I second guessed myself. I just, I would have trouble sleeping. I would set myself up for situations in my work that I really didn't need to. I'd worry about things and deal with stuff, and I really kind of felt a little bit victimized by my worrisome mind a lot. And using these kinds of technologies, they have a direct effect on the mind. The mind, whatever is going on in your mind that's getting you worked up or worried or whatever, your brain is resonating with that. You're building up that storm inside, that little thought storm, that worry, that poor me story, that uh-oh story, that whatever. And, you're generating that, and your brain's gravitating towards that. And using these, these little shorts, it doesn't really need to be more than 5-10 minutes. You can get a hold of things in there, as it were. You can get the mind a little bit more relaxed, and then you find that the story, the voice that you're kind of working towards, the better story, the more confident story, these things, these little tricks that you're learning along your path to success or health or love or whatever you're, general well-being, that your mind will work with you more, and that you'll find that you build a little oasis, a little mental quiet oasis that you can always go to. And I'm sure G can testify to this, that, once you build a little space for that oasis, it just grows, it just grows and grows. And whenever I'm in a stressed out situation, I'll put one of these tracks on, and then I'll do my affirmations or whatever. And I just find that it really supercharges it. I can really feel it working on my behalf.
So speaking of feeling, so would you say this is more of a shifting your emotions, or is it a shifting of your energy, a shifting of your mindset, or is it a combination of that?
I would say it's a combination of all of those. I mean, even if you were to just, let's create a hypothetical situation that maybe we can all relate with. Let's say you have somebody you work with that kind of annoys you a little bit. and
that never happens to any of us.
I'm sure, yeah. It's just a pure hypothetical situation. And, and every time they're around, you find yourself, you get worked up or whatever. You could just, if you have the luxury of listening to this, you can put your headphones on. You could, if you could have it playing in the background or whatever, you'll find that you will notice the fact that your brain is just more, it gravitates more towards a calm state. And that calm state generally is related to a lot of other strong elements of our character, like patience and tolerance and compassion and all these other things that tend to associate with that. And so everything kind of tends to resonate in concert. And the more that you get your mind and brain in tune with how to find and discover that oasis, as it were, the more of a viable tool it is for your daily practice. I hope that made sense. That sounded a little rambly.
No, exactly.
It's an interesting phenomenon, but stress is created out of a state where we're confronted with something that we don't have a solution to, and we end up getting kind of stuck in this circuit. The body feels some kind of sense of threat, minor or major. Immediately, the sense of fear, which is a sense of I've got to act or run, I've got to do something at this point, triggers. Usually what happens then is the mind kicks in to say, well, what do I need to do? And if the mind doesn't have an answer, it just kind of feeds back. What do you mean you don't have an answer? I don't have an answer. I don't know what to do. What do you mean you don't know what to do? And the whole thing begins to elevate. If you can cut that circuit anywhere along the line, you've really just drained the circuit. That circuit of association doesn't happen. The memories don't happen. And suddenly everything begins to calm down, because that spiraling stress, is it spiraling up because I don't have it, you need a solution, I don't have a solution, it has nowhere to go. It's just kind of this merry-go-round you're on. It gets short-circuited. And one of the ways you can do that is simply bring the emotional system, the energy system, the nervous system into a state of calm. Even if it's induced from the environment, to bring it into a state of calm, it cuts the circuit. And of course, the moment that happens, all of the ancillary stuff, all the stuff that's happened because the stressful state has gotten put into place, also begins to disappear. So anxious thoughts, the impulse that you have to do something, all of that begins to dissolve. And it's only because you've introduced this new element into the equation. And you can learn to do that, by yourself. It just takes decades. But with some technologies like that, the process can be sped up enormously. But that's, try to figure out which is physical, which is emotional, which is mental, which is spiritual, which is energetic. It's like it's a continuum. I mean, it depends on which part of the circle you're standing on. You'll determine what the rest of the circle looks like. You really can't separate them, which is why if you can intervene at any point in the circuit, the entire circuit calms down. Yeah,
and also something that we didn't really touch upon is that we are bathed in high frequencies at all times now. The microwave frequencies, the towers. I mean, it's everywhere. And I was just reading an article today about the Schumann resonance frequency of the Earth, and that's where the lightning of a planet basically creates an electromagnetic frequency, and our Earth's ionosphere resonates with 7.8 hertz. That's its resonance. That's what it really resonates with. And it's interestingly enough, that's right at the edge of the theta wave and alpha wave state. That's supposed to be the perfect state of mind, as it were, and that resonates completely with what the Earth's atmosphere resonates with. And, I think that resonance is something that is pretty much a part of everything, how we resonate with others, how the vibe of a situation, on an emotional level, or the actual resonance of a high-pitched sound that you're hearing with your ears or feeling with your body. It's all the same thing, kind of, Well,
it's just the, it's just the medium through which it's passing. I mean, sound goes through air, but, the energy of the energy system, the human, who knows what it passes through. I mean, but the fact that it does, I mean, you can walk up to a door to go into a room and know whether or not you're going to be welcome in that room or not. You can feel it before you even open the door, before there are any visual cues whatsoever.
Yeah.
So it's self-evident to me that there's a resonant frequency going on that we sense. There's a frequency being emitted, and we're either going to receive it or we're going to reject it. But we all feel it, and I don't know what it is. I don't know how to describe it. I don't know. There's this ether. There's this magic ingredient. With sound, it's obvious. There's air and sound waves, so you can picture it. But this is so much more subtle. But we're all living in the most subtle, most sensitive instrument that's ever been created, which is this body, which can sense things that we're just not even aware that we're sensing yet.
Right, exactly. That article about the Schumann resonance, the new theory is suggesting that perhaps that's the way that organisms can understand the solar activity of the sun that their planet is dependent on, I mean, on just a really subtle level.
Yeah.
And and that's along that same line, those same frequencies tend to have a great effect on health, reducing blood pressure, that sort of thing.
And they also don't seem to obey the laws of physics. I mean, they can go faster than the speed of light and be in two places at the same time. That it's almost like a completely different plane on which we live, and it is oriented around frequencies.
Yeah, and when you were mentioning earlier about how some of the tracks that I had done had maybe worked better than some of the others, my trick is simple. I make the technology more prominent. It's out there. I needed the stuff to work, for myself. I cranked it up, as we used to say when we were kids, I cranked up the volume. And I used what I would, I guess, call acoustical sleight of hand, where I'm basically using chord relationships and certain acoustical techniques to wander the attention away from those technologies and more to the melody and the nature and the ambience, so that the sounds are more attractive and appealing to the attention and the consciousness.
Well, not more attractive, appealing and attractive, because if anybody's actually heard the raw binaural beats, oh my God, they're annoying. You just can't listen. You just can't
really
listen
have to dress them up.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
It's fingers on a chalkboard. It's horrible to listen to. You have to bury it in some kind of other sound, otherwise, people would go mad. They wouldn't. Nobody could listen long enough for it to have an effect.
When I first started there, I tried listening to the raw tones, and I had the exact same reaction, and I thought there was something wrong with me. I'm like, oh, I'm not trying hard enough. I'm not listening hard enough. But what I discovered is that perhaps my physiology was reacting to it, but my consciousness and my awareness was just resisting it at all opportunities.
Yes. Well,
so how did you get past that resistance?
what I've done is I've tried to excuse me. I've tried to establish ways to bury the sounds and set up patterns away from the sounds. They can't be buried so much that you can't hear them, but you can use certain chord relationships, certain sound relationships, so that you can make the attention kind of have to pick. And it kind of has to pick, what am I going to pay attention to here? Am I going to pay attention to these tones and these pulses, which I'm pretty much feeling? Or am I going to get wandered away by this beautiful little other distraction that's happening in the audio soundscape, as it were? Mm-hmm. And so you really, it's really all about your attention. If you really focus, you can hear the technologies a lot more so than maybe in some of the other products that G was mentioning. But not for long, because the design is just like with the magician's sleight of hand. You know that what your goal is to move the attention away, and so the entire audio environment, except for those technologies, is designed to entertain your mind away from them.
Okay, that makes sense, but yet it seems so interesting to me that while you're listening to this beautiful melody, you're also getting these notes, and your mind is fighting to pick which it's going to listen to and pay attention to.
Well,
right.
It happens all the time. Anyway, we're bombarded with all sorts of messages all the time, but not all of them get in. Yet the nervous system hears them all, right, and decides which ones are important and which ones aren't. And by important or which aren't, it means which ones are actually going to make it to the cerebral cortex, where we have the experience of focus and concentration. Mm-hmm. Yet the rest is getting in. The brain is processing it. It is having an effect on the nervous system, but you have basically just filtered it out so that the conscious part of you isn't aware. It's focusing on what is much more pleasant. If you really make yourself, you can hear it. If you really force yourself to listen to it and give your mind that direction, it'll focus the attention. Then you go, oh, that's why I'm not listening to it. It's really annoying. And you go back to listen to the pretty stuff.
I do actually have a question that came up this week from a caller. They just happened to not be on the line to ask the question tonight. They actually emailed me. And actually, I'm going to turn to both of you to each kind of give your thoughts around it. So it's specifically asking about the I Am Money meditation. So they went onto our website. It's www.loa20.com, and they downloaded their free I Am Money meditation.
Which anybody listening to us can do.
Yes, that's why I just gave you all the websites. Please go get your free meditation. It's only good for the month. Each month we're going to be changing what the gift is, what the free giveaway is. It'll always be a downloadable something, but this month it is the I Am Money meditation, which actually went along nicely with last week's guest and now goes along perfectly with this week's guest because, yes, Don, you helped create it.
Absolutely. Don did we actually worked on that one together, and we are really, really pleased with the way it came out.
Yeah, it's a great meditation. I urge all of you to get it. I'm going to be listening to it in a different way after tonight, though, I have to tell you. I'm going to be looking for those notes.
You're going to be listening for the annoying notes.
I'm going to be listening for the beats. I'm going to be listening for the annoying beats.
Yeah. Hey everybody, this is G. What does it mean to truly forgive and let go? Follow my co-host, author Karen Scarpula, on her journey to forgiveness in her new book, Walking Toward the Light. Karen's ex-husband had just been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she makes the bold, and some might say crazy decision to move herself and her children back in with him, so her children could reconnect with their father and make new memories that will hopefully last a lifetime and maybe even heal old wounds. Anyone that has ever had to grapple with forgiveness will find enormous guidance and encouragement in Karen's journey. Walking Toward the Light, A Journey in Forgiveness and Death, is now available at Amazon.com.
We had a listener ask, how long is it and how many times a day should they be listening to their I Am Money meditation? And I think you guys can talk in generalities about meditations and then specifically about the I Am Money. She also wanted to know, will it help me to love money? Will it make me comfortable with it, comfortable with attracting money easily? Do I just have to listen to it and concentrate on what you're saying? And I think that this is a great question because we've already sort of talked about that there are multiple layers within the meditation, right? There's voiceover, there's the affirmations, there's also the melody, and then there are these binaural beats. So tell us a little bit, guys.
There's also two other brain entrainment technologies in there as well. That's what makes it so interesting. There's actually an array, 3 or 4, Don. Is there 3 or 4 different?
Well, in this one we have 3. We're using isochronic tones, the binaural beats, and solfeggio frequencies.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's chock full.
It's chock full of goodness for everyone. Yeah. Now, the frequency that we're using, some of the listeners might be familiar with. It's the 528 hertz love frequency, which is also the DNA activator frequency and the miracles frequency. The solfeggio frequency scale we haven't really talked about. But that might even be, I don't know how much time we really have. And he is just an amazing musician, audio engineer, and somebody that probably could go on for days about that. But we use these certain frequencies, which are an ancient scale, which have been related to the ability to do a variety of different things mentally and physically for you. And so we chose that one particular frequency because it's actually able to activate repair of your DNA in the laboratory test. Can you believe that?
Wow.
This frequency is really awesome, and it's being called the love frequency, and it's the transformation and miracles frequency. So we figured it was the perfect frequency to use on the I Am Money track.
It's also in the key of C, and C is the resonating frequency of the first chakra. So it also gets the first chakra to resonate in harmony with it, and the first chakra is the chakra of actually the physical, which is why it affects the DNA, the physical world, and also of safety. So it would enhance the feeling of safety, that feeling of belonging, feeling of being part, the feeling of actually money being a part of your world. And that's why we use the word money and not abundance or prosperity, which are just, more the kind of higher note, abundance and that sort, or even wealth. Money, very physical, very gritty, very earthy, which is what the first chakra is all about, the physical manifestation of it. So when it comes to the will this alone do it? Well, like I said in the beginning, there's a level of intention that it needs to be. This is meditation is not just about getting your body into a certain state. It's the development of character and focus, and a shift in your perception of yourself. What these technologies do is they make it easier. They make the nervous system resonate in such a way that it puts up less resistance to the deep changes you're trying to make in within yourself. It becomes receptive to the idea that money is your friend, that it loves you, that you can love it, that it's okay for it, that it's safe for it to come in, that it's acceptable to come in. Because for a lot of people, the problem with money isn't that they don't like it or they don't want it or they don't feel that it's okay to have. There's a very deep resistance that can be tribal. And that's why the first chakra is so important. Matter of fact, when I teach the chakras, I spend more time on the first 3 chakras than on all the rest of them, because that's where most of our traumas took place. Because the first chakra is the chakra of your physical body, your physical world, your tribe, your parents, your family of origin. And so all of the lessons you learned about life and therefore about money were learned and stored in the energy system, the energy sink, the energy depot of the first chakra. So if you, for instance, grew up in a family that distrusted wealthy people, a working class family that I don't want to take anything that I don't earn. You got to work hard for a living. All these rules that become mores of the tribe. there's going to be a certain resistance when you get older if you haven't cleared those out of the system. There's going to be a resistance to earning a certain amount of money. And a lot of people have that experience of getting to a certain point and not being able to get any higher, or earning it and losing it, earning it and losing it, earning it and losing it. That's because you've run into this program that has been installed in the system. Now, when you use a technique like meditation, or meditation combined with this kind of technology, it doesn't make it go away. What it does is get you into a state where the system is more susceptible to making the transition and letting go of these patterns that have been stuck there. As you make the system more pliable, you become more conscious. It becomes more receptive to your ideas that money is your friend, that it's safe, that you're not violating some moral law, that you're not going to insult the tribe, that you're not going to make mom and dad be ashamed, that you're not going to turn into a Paris Hilton, right, or a Donald Trump, that you're still going to be a good person.
Let's hope not.
You're still going to be a good person. You're not going to spend the money on a diamond toilet, right? But of course, these are the fears that have been programmed at that level. And remember, these fears are put in there, from the moment you're conceived. They're beginning to collect. They're pre-language, and they're certainly cognitive ability. So really, all we're doing is making the system more teachable and less resistant to making these transitions from the less functional state that it's in into a much more functional state that's much more conscious. It's now following what you really know to be true. So
let's face it, the mind's had plenty of time to practice the not effective stuff.
Right.
It's had years of practice running away with the crazy poor me story and the worrisome mind and all that stuff that's built in from the, like G's saying, from the animal script, from the natural protector that's in there,
Well, and it's hard to break those stories because that's been the constant. You've lived in that state for a long time. I think for me, when I started studying meditation, started using it, you're aware that you are resistant, but you don't know where it's coming from. It takes you, longer to learn to look for that resistance and look where it's coming from. But in the meantime, I think even as you begin working with meditation, it's just about recognizing that there's resistance and letting the resistance go. Like realizing you are resistant to the message, but just saying, I'm just going to lose the resistance. I'm just going to push it away for a short time so that I can be present for this meditation. I come at it from a different place. I've studied as a layperson, so I don't know if you have a different story around how meditation started for you, G or Don, but that's sort of where it started for me.
Too. I'm right there with you. I thank goodness for me, a lot of these technologies worked because, I was at a later point in my life and, I'd really built an established career and a mindset around thinking a certain way. It did a lot of great things for me in my career, in my business, and, a lot of other endeavors, but it really wasn't serving my compassionate, gentle, thy true spirit. And, and that had to start off with just a little pinhole of a new story that was just, trying to peek through, and in the daily practice kind of gives it a safe place for the story to grow. And next thing you know, you have an alternate story, and then you can choose that story. And then once the mind realizes that it doesn't have to jump up and look out for you all the time, that it can relax and trust the new story that you have, it sort of settle down a little bit. Is that true?
Okay,
that's absolutely key. And what you discover is that it was a story. The only reason it's a problem is that we think it's true, and then and we think it's true. We feel it true. It becomes a truth that's kind of built into the nervous system, so it doesn't even get questioned. It's like asking a fish about water. It's going to go, what water, huh? right? Because it's surrounding you. It's what you live in. It's everything you know. It's your universe. And so in meditation, when you feel that discomfort, when you feel that sense of resistance, it's not something to run away from. It's something to turn towards. Because that's the information you're looking for. That's the trauma that needs to be released. That's the programming that needs to be deprogrammed and reprogrammed in much more functional ways.
So, Don, you talked about your daily sort of practice. So, I think that was one of the questions we had from one of our listeners was, so how often do I do it? So, for you, what is your daily practice using these things?
I find that if I'm really trying to activate a change or a shift in my state of mind or consciousness, that the two best times are right when you first wake up in the morning and right when you start drifting off to bed at night. That, if this person is really trying to establish a new script, a new relationship with money, and really get the most out of this technology, that I find that the mind is most susceptible to those sorts of things at those two times of the day.
Absolutely, and that's why a lot of meditation schools, first thing in the morning and last thing at night.
I know that's when I generally I feel I'm more alert in the morning, so I try to do any meditation that I feel is more something I need to be working on. And then I tend to use more calming meditations at the end of the day. Those are the ones that allow me to kind of slow down so that I can dream at night about all of the new stories I'm creating.
And, in the self-help community and the law of attraction, I mean, what's the first thing they do in the morning is, wake up, make your gratitude list. I mean, the way you start your day, you're going to create an energy that is going to carry you through the day. And the way you end your day is actually going to be a way in which you can process everything that's happened during the day, release any negative things that might have collected, and really open yourself up to have a complete fresh experience the next day. I don't care what the practice is you do. Start the day with something that's not work, that's not checking your emails, that's not seeing what's going on out in the world, that's not external. Start the day focused on yourself. How am I feeling? Am I feeling grateful? Did I get up on the wrong side of the bed? What's going on with me? Even if you feel bad, to just give yourself the attention rather than run away from it changes the tenor of the day. And there's one other thing I want to add. I say a lot of different things. That meditation is 20 minutes long. And I say a lot of different things about money, and I say it from a bunch of different angles, and I do that on purpose. If something I says actually gets a negative response, that's okay. Actually put your attention on that negative response. You can even forget what I'm saying from that point on. Give that negative reaction, that uncomfortable reaction, your attention. Approach it with love. Because what we want to do is release any resistance there is to being totally harmonious and totally accepting about yourself and about money, which is just an extension of yourself. And so you want to be able to ultimately listen to an entire meditation like that and feel completely congruent with it. If you don't, it doesn't mean there's a problem. It means that's your stuck energy. That's the place you want to go to. That's what needs your attention.
I'm one of those people that, grew up in a limited, in a limited resource kind of mindset, and I come from a modest family, and, I have had and probably still have a bit of an uncomfortable relationship with success and wealth, but I've had to deal with that to a degree. And, one of the most important things for me was just learning how to be grateful. It's the gratitude. It's, starting out the attitude of gratitude, all that sort of stuff that we hear. That for this particular user, this particular listener, if they're having issues with money or something else, I can certainly resonate with that. And there's a lot of power in gratitude. That was all I'd add.
That's great. Thank you.
It's an important thing to add. Remember, wealth is a perception, right? It's not the state of what you actually have. It's how you perceive what you have, right? If you think you have enough, you're wealthy, and you don't have a sense of needing more, which means you don't have the feeling of lack, which is the feeling of wealth. So anytime you can become aware, and you can't manufacture gratitude. Yeah, I'm really grateful for this. You can't do that. I mean, really find things that matter to you and that you have. I mean, the reality is that most people living in the West have an enormous amount of wealth. Interestingly enough, a study that was done by the UN a couple of years ago on the happiest countries in the world. The happiest countries in the world were also the poorest. They were like Pakistan and Bangladesh. And the U.S., the wealthiest country in the world, was like around 59th below Czechoslovakia and Poland. So it isn't how much you actually have that determines your level of happiness. It's how much you are present. It's how much you are appreciative of what you have. It's how much what you have means to you. And we're just really, we're just constantly bombarded by these commercial messages where we're always being showed what we don't have and what we should have so that we can be asked to be buying more stuff that we don't need. Wealth is that sense of contentment with what you have. Somebody asked the Hindu sage Nisargadatta what was the key to happiness. And his answer was just really brilliant and simple. He said, want what you have, don't want what you don't have.
It's true, though.
It really is very simple. We need to honestly look at all these desires and whether they're really we're trying to a cheap replacement for a lack of a sense of our own worth, or if it's something we actually really do need. And that's part of this process of meditation, is becoming into a deep, deep state of honesty so that we can begin to understand that wealth is a state of being. Wealth is a state of recognizing how much bounty and blessing you have in your life, however humble it may seem on the outside.
I really like that. Can you repeat that again for our listeners? I think that's such a strong message, what wealth is really about.
Wealth is a genuine appreciation of the bounty and the blessing you actually do have in your life, no matter how humble it may look from the outside.
I think that's such a law of attraction 2.0 moment, because we're talking about the law of attraction. We've all heard about it. We know what it is, but we're here trying to give our listeners tools to help them really live the law of attraction in their lives. And that's such a huge moment and an understanding what wealth truly is.
Yeah, the law of attraction isn't about just getting all the goodies. It's beginning to wake up to the abundance that lives within your own heart, and by the necessity of the way the universe works and who you are, an abundance that's actually already present in your life that you don't see.
That was wonderful.
Love it. Well, that brings us almost to the end of our show.
Oh, wow.
Don, and you were worried. Don, we could go on for another hour.
I have one little bit of something to add, is that we've been talking about resonance a lot tonight, and we've talked about the frequency following effect for these technologies and the brain moving towards these different states. Well, that's a pretty good analogy for the law of attraction, because the universe is doing that with us. The universe is trying to follow our frequency, and it's moving towards us at all times and trying to resonate with us. And so we need to become that frequency. We need to be the change you want to see in the world, or all those little bumper stickers we've seen around. But when you become that energy that resonates with, you become you resonate with the universe, and the universe will resonate with you. And so by becoming more grateful and in touch with your sense of abundance, the universe will be that much more apt to provide it for you.
The universe is the guitar. You are the guitarist.
Had a great time with you guys. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Thanks for being here, Don.
So I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight with us. And please don't forget to get your free download this month titled I Am Money, put together by G.P. Walsh and Don. So hopefully you'll get to our website, www.loa20.com. Click on the icon in the top right-hand corner for your free download. Thank you so much again, Don. We really appreciated having you. Look forward to maybe having you back again.
I would be honored. Thank you so much. I had a really great time. Have a good night, everyone.
Great. Thank you. And listen, guys, in the future, we'll be talking with Yin Ping Lee, Beth Meisner, Jen Paul, Rick Wilkes, Carol Look, and Chris Jackson. So keep returning, keep coming back, and we hope you'll join us next week for more Straight Talk. So good night.